Dear participants of the 2021 edition of the IST-Africa conference, my name is Pekko Lindblom from the University of Turku, Finland, and I'm delighted to be here with you today and elaborate a bit on our new Smart Rural Research Framework that we've been working on lately within real-life projects in the countryside. At present, besides my research endeavors, I'm working as a project coordinator in our Department of Computing, where we also are looking into ways how to facilitate regions in their development aspirations via various forms of ICT. So I'm looking forward to your feedback and topical questions or comments regarding my presentation titled Defining Smart Rural in the Framework of Regional Digitalization, or by pondering other interesting topics on strategic development in the peripheral regions, or even about my predictions on when actually the last piles of snow will melt here in Helsinki from the last winter season. In this paper, we explored how a smart development framework could be harnessed for enhancing small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, activities in rural communities. With this aim, our study considered and compared the SME ecosystems in Ghana, a developing country context, and Finland, a developed country context. Alongside with the deprived countryside or remote work thematic, it has become clear that contemporary digital platforms and collaborative media represent an integral part of smart development. In addition, remote working possibilities help tackle the challenging times or state of emergency, such as the ongoing COVID-19 crisis. Centralized services and national migration are some of the most important negative factors accelerating the deprivation of the remote areas, and it has become clear that inhabitants as well as businesses suffer when regions are lagging in regional development. Current circumstances present real challenges for policymakers, companies, and individuals alike. From these topical starting points, our aim is twofold. We ground the theoretical framework of Smart Rural by defining and assessing the smart development concepts within digitalization context. And secondly, we proposed a strategic-level unified Smart Rural Development Model, SRDM, to promote regional decision-making on smart rural implementations. Oftentimes, the notion of smart is used to underline the contemporariness of the development aspirations in strategic policies and when categorizing the components or attributes of community development. The focal point in current discussion is the increasing impact and relevance which the knowledge economy represents in everyday life and business in the society. To help rural communities achieve modern IT development aspirations and SMEs to harness digital business tools, more effective knowledge transfers is needed to and within the regions. We first explored the common definitions concerning the notion of smart used in the terminology in regional development, SME sector, and peripheral areas. We limited our scope towards digitalization and learning capabilities as a guiding framework to understand and define smartness in an operational sense. Secondly, we compared the circumstances and starting points of regional business development between Ghana and Finland. And thirdly, we conclude by proposing some avenues for policy development and a model for defining the concept of smart rural. In our digital age, urban and regional development has evolved from the early days of urban planning. Today, emergent challenges, new thematic and attributes have created needs to update policies as well as concepts for smarter planning. The question is often how digitalization would make communities more vibrant and effective. The concept of smart city has attracted a growing amount of interest in recent years. Often the notion of smart city is narrowly related to the use of virtual or concrete technologies to improve the city's various functions. In general, the definition is also used to describe technologies such as IoT, sensors, and robotics. On the other hand, in virtual context, this concept has often understood to include information systems and big data that have been produced for public use. However, smart has also been adopted to depict e-governance, well-being, happiness, and general quality of life. So the functioning of the city or a community has been introduced to a set of softer values than before. As the world gets increasingly interconnected, the global events, international agreements, and unexpected changes affect the regional development. Economic changes add pressure on regions to harness regional development strategies and programs in order to achieve key regional policy objectives, such as ensuring equal services and living standards. We have observed that digitalization may fade physical distances between cities and the countryside. We argue that regional stakeholders who are willing to design and to take bold steps towards smart development strategies, we'll see improvement in the vitality among regional SMEs business. Research has already shown that smart development solutions within the scope of SMEs have transformative power to enhance the livability, inclusion, and the quality of life in the rural communities. Prevailing policy needs are inter-regional strategies related to digitalization. These include, for example, the Digital Economy for Africa initiative. When investigating policy development from operational perspective, sharing public data and opening new big data repositories are important shifts in contemporary regional smart development policy. Vision for development components. The Smart Rural Development Model, SRDM. We realize that it is challenging to generalize an overarching model to promote regional development aspirations. Therefore, we created an individual framework for enhancing regional digital policies. We present the SRDM by the challenges and opportunities arisen from the digitalization of society, arising from the SMEs landscape in Ghana and Finland. The knowledge of connected or mutual challenges were found to be interesting despite the obvious environmental differences and imbalance in scale between our focus areas. Our proposition for a unified development model is constructed on the characteristics of business landscape in the countryside, and it leverages contemporary digitalization strategies. The SRDM encompasses 2 overarching attributes and 3 critical components to smart rural development. The latter one consists of data and IT infrastructure, governance, and human capacity. The essential part in the creation process of the SRDM is the identification of 2 cross-cutting drivers, digitalization and support mechanisms. Various components were identified and elaborated during the modeling process, which we reflected to the research literature of smart development and rural landscape from the SME's perspective. These key drivers aroused within the creation of the model. We argue that Smart Rural Initiative could be realized by riding on the 3 components aided by the overarching attributes. While it is common knowledge that smartness, in this context, is associated with data and IT, our model manifests the relevance of human capacity and governance in smart rural development. Additionally, we argue that cultural factors and alignment are notable distinguishing contributors between rural and urban context. Smart development in rural settings include leveraging the people's knowledge and vision in co-design and development process. This is understood to include learning and interaction dimensions. The increase in vitality can be achieved through interaction and dynamic knowledge sharing activities. Projects or workshop environments can act as mitigating tools to get rural SMEs work together. Informal learning, shared innovation, and inclusion as methodologies are key components in facilitating local networks and clusters. When investigating the factors, we can see that unexpectedly, those related to digitalization are surprisingly in line with each other. The main concern from the regional business development perspective is that the knowledge of new technologies and the starting level of intellectual property among the SMEs present an acute threat to local entrepreneurs. They seldom have excess resources, possibilities, or motivation to cultivate themselves or their business partners with contemporary technological solutions. Also, the availability of language versions of a software or a service may be an obstacle. From our previous experiences, demographically, informal learning and grassroots projects have positive transformative power to the region as well as to business clusters. In achieving Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, we propose a shared focus on smartening the rural communities with digital spearheads. Strong initiatives must be made to secure accessibility, develop inclusion, and help regions reach the full potential of the digital economy. Often, changes in governmental policy are slow in producing concrete impact to the regions. Therefore, we argue that experimental projects and locally co-created operations will help strengthen the rural areas. The SRDM addresses exactly this issue and takes notable strategic relationships also into account. Smart bottom-up development approaches creates faster experiences, feedback, and iteration. This is especially important and impactful for the SMEs in the rural communities and in certain cohorts where peer-to-peer support is appreciated. Still, support is needed from the regional policymakers and from operational development experts to promote dynamic efforts, networking, business know-how, and personal development of the entrepreneurs in the countryside. We understand the role that the rural communities play in national development. Hence, we have discussed and developed the SRDM, explaining the attributes to promote the SME's activities. The two cross-cutting key drivers will likely be transformative to the development of smart countryside, its policies, businesses, and eventually people's lives, regardless of the actual location. We underline the relevance of increasing the local level of digital business. We also see that both horizontal and vertical strategic support activities are essential for rural projects because unequal possibilities affect the business development in the countryside. I also want to underline that demographics and cultural traits play a central part in the mechanics of rural development operations. Our previous experience with real-life cases have revealed that informal training of various mobile software, online applications, or language skills is needed in rural settings. This, however, requires willingness to take part and learn from others. So the key takeaways are both A, co-creation of supporting mechanisms for local businesses to network and innovate, and B, facilitation of the digitalization efforts via ICT-related knowledge transfer to and within the rural communities. The SRDM can be understood as a baseline for regional development policy in the digital age within peripheral settings. In the future, we tend to evaluate the SRDM in different contexts by interacting more with the rural SMEs and validate our model to policy use more broadly. Our viewpoint is that both state-driven regional funding programs, together with locally and contextually co-designed projects, help to strengthen the applicability of digital solutions and hence digital leap in rural settings. To conclude, local, small-scale, informal projects may prove transformative to the SME's e-business know-how and to the skills of individuals. For us, all this is smart rural in the framework of regional digitalization. Thank you for your attention.